Right now, I am here to explain you about one of my recent project named as a Company Brain. Company Brain is a simple project that allows the users to talk to your database in a plain English language. User can simply connect their database along with the Company Brain and ingest the documents, which could be anything which is relevant for answering the questions into the platform. And now you can communicate with the database in any way and get the answer. Now I will walk you through the architecture of a company brain, like how it works actually behind the bars. This is basically a GitHub repo for my project. Now I'm taking you to the system architecture, how it actually works. The first layer is basically the front end layer, which contains the 4 pages. The first page is the landing page where you are allowed to authenticate yourself using the GitHub auth. The second page you will land on after the authentication is the dashboard page. And after the dashboard page, you have an options to create a playground and have a chart interface as well as an ingest panel. Now the second layer basically is the fast API layer, which contains the 4 endpoints which the main backend operations work on. The first is an authentication we work on the GitHub OAuth, which is responsible for generating the JW2 authentication token, which will be passed with every request to authenticate. The next one is the playground, which allows you to create a playground providing the credentials to your database. Along with the credentials, you can ingest some documents or provide the business context regarding the database you're working with. The next and the least, but is one of the most important backend, which is basically the ask route. The ask route works like in a way which allows you to write the query, and based on the query, it collects the context from the Pinecone database if there is something available with the Pinecone, and it will also collect the information from the database by running the SQL queries. And after getting the certain information, those information will be passed to the LLM, and LLM will generate a user representable and a human readable response to the user. Then at last we have an ingest route, which is basically used to ingest the documents into the Pinecone database, which is broken down into the vectors by the sentence transformers, which are then further stored into the Pinecone database. Now here we have the two database working for the application, which is the Postgres database, which will store the user information, the playground information, and the credentials to the user database which has been connected. And other than that, we have a Pinecone database, right? So this is the workflow activity diagram. The user will sign in the GitHub. After clicking on the sign in using the GitHub, the user will be redirected to the GitHub page, or where the user will enter the credentials, and after getting successfully authenticated, the user will be redirected to the dashboard. After coming to the dashboard, the user will have an option to create the playground, and once a user is authenticated and authorized, user is able to create the playground, and after entering all the required details in the playground, he can simply communicate with the database he have ingested. Now I will walk you through how it actually works. So I will authenticate it using the GitHub. It has been successfully authenticated with the GitHub. I will create a playground having a testing database and its connection URL. I can provide here the context if any I am having any context with me. Now I will create a playground. Now the playground has been successfully created. Now I will query it and give me a detailed explanation what kind of information my database holds, right? So I got the response that the database contains the information about the user groups and the permission. The auth user table stores the information about each user, including their username, password, email, and whether they can be a staff or an active user. The other auth group table basically stores the information about each group, and it is basically in Django framework. So it is basically storing the information that the Django admin panel holds. So in this way, we can simply communicate with our database. In the ingest docs panel, I can simply ingest some relevant document which would be helpful for the LLM to generate a response. So when I click on ingest, here also I can provide some business context if required. This will also be passed as an prompt to our LLM before generating any response. So here the document has been successfully ingested. Now let us ask some questions to fetch information from a database. Give me user, give me active users details. So this is the information of the current active user. There is only one user active, which is basically the admin. We haven't added any more users yet. So in this way, we can simply communicate with the natural in a natural language with our database. So to sum up what we just walked through, CompanyBrain takes a plain English question and turns it into a real SQL query against whatever database you point it at, while pulling in the context from any documents you have uploaded so that the agent understands the business terms and the schema alone can't tell. Now I will walk you through. So let's first start with the backend. So the backend first contains an SQL agent which is responsible for running the queries and collecting the information from the LLM. First, load model is basically used to load the model. The model could be either the Grok, it could be ChatGPT, it could be Llama, it could be anything, right? Next function is about loading the database. Then we will create a function to create an agent. We are using here LangChain, which provides an inbuilt agent to operate with the database. Then app.py contains the main functions which operates. It contains the endpoints like auth, the playground, and listing of playground to ingest the documents into the Pinecone, and the most important, the ask route. Auth.py contains a class which is basically used to authenticate and authorize the user. We have check.py to check certain envs. We have database models.py, which contains all the models, right? Like the database schema we are using with. The prompt.py contains the primary prompt that goes with the LLM. We have requirement.txt, which contains all the requirements like LangChain, Pinecone, Python, which version we are using, the OpenAI, which using Grok, which we are using. Then this is basically a testing script which is used to test our endpoints. And we have in vector DB, where basically the breakdown of the documents happens, where the document is actually breakdown into the chunks of vector and stored in the Pinecone. Now we have the front end file. SRC folder contains all the landing pages, right? The front end is mainly hard coded using the AI platforms like Claude, GitHub. I mainly focus on the backend part. The front end part is mainly vibe coded, right? So I don't have any very much exposure to front end. I am passionate about building the backend systems and AI powered applications using Python. My interest lies in a Python backend development, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, and large language model, and enjoy understanding the system and even designing the systems. And I have an adept understanding of system design, as well as I would love to solve the real world problems through scalable and production ready solutions. I would be grateful for the opportunity if I would be working with the Python as my tech stack, as it will help me to grow as well as understand more about Python and AI engineering while contributing to the impactful projects. So I would love to work with Python and with any tech stack that would help me grow better.